It is very rare that a Porsche 911 comes through merit that we know very little about. In this past week, we have a visitor that showed us just how diverse the 911 world really is. Now I know what you're saying. You're saying, Evan, isn't that just a 993 turbo? And yes, it is. From the outside, it's no different than every other 993 turbo. From the inside, it's no different than every other 993 turbo. But if we take a look under the hood at the options plate, we will see three letters right here, XLC. And those three little letters are what make this car so different. So what does the XLC option even mean? Well, it gives this car two things, and they're both very important in the Porsche world. First is rarity. This is a 1998 911 turbo, which means it was one of the last cars off the line from the Porsche factory. There were only 266 turbos with the XLC option, half of them being right-hand drive, half of them being left-handed drive, which make this an extremely rare example. The second thing is what the XLC option really means. And essentially what they did is they put a Turbo S motor inside of a 993 turbo. This is a 450 horsepower motor with upgraded intercooler and upgraded exhaust. So you're basically driving around a standard 993 turbo with a massive upgraded motor from Porsche put into the car. So let's go take this thing out, let's drive it and see if you can really tell a difference. Woo, that's good. For the purposes of this review, there's really only one question we need to answer, and that is, can you really tell a difference between the exhaust, the power bump, and the motor? And the simple answer is yes, you can. But it's given characteristics to this car that is different than the standard 993 turbo. I've had the great privilege of driving both plenty of 993 turbos as well as a couple Turbo S's. So I know what each car feels like, and this definitely doesn't feel like a Turbo S. I would say a Turbo S feels a little faster than this. And of course, you know, this does have the standard 993 suspension and everything else. It's just basically a Turbo S motor. So it's really cool because you do get this extra bit of power from that Turbo S motor. But what I've noticed is it's little things of how the power reacts. For instance, when you're flooring it and you're accelerating and you come off of the gas, the car almost gets unsettled, which is very unusual for a 993 turbo. It's usually very soft, very smooth. And in this car, it just feels more on edge. So you have to learn to come off the gas a little bit more smoothly in order to drive this car the way it was meant to be driven. So it's very interesting because this car falls price-wise in between a Turbo S and a turbo. And I would say experience-wise, this car falls in between a Turbo S and a standard turbo. So that's where the rarity piece comes into play on this car. Not only is it the last of its kind, which is very important in the Porsche world, the last to be produced, but it's also, like I mentioned, only 266 of these cars were optioned. Turbos were optioned with the XLC package. So yes, it falls in between the two cars, but as far as rarity goes, this car is more rare than the Turbo S and the standard turbo, leaving the XLC to be a very special, very collectible, very interesting car in the Porsche 911 line.